Beautiful people, you listen to ABE Radio. This your boy E Biddle, a.k.a. E. Biddle, a.k.a. the People's Champ, better known as the most electrifying and Mr. Chairman on ABE Radio, the first ever podcast of all black everything, black liberation, reparations radio, revolutionary and ratchetness for your conscious mind. I'm joined with other ABE members.
Monique Liston, Chief of Staff for ABE.
Xavier Peterson.
You don't got nothing better than
Adamant
that?
supporter. I don't have any AB, AKAs, BKAs at the moment.
And just so the people will know that we are not professional radiologists. We are just doing this to liberate the radio waves, to bring some discourse from a black liberation, black-minded, black power point of view.
Learn by doing.
Beautiful.
Learn by doing, you know what I'm saying? I actually got a lot of controls. I feel important, like I got a title or something.
I wish y'all could see, like it's serious over here.
I got the Kool-Aid smile. I'm feeling good right now. But the purpose of ABE, for those that don't know, All Black Everything, was an organization that I actually started with myself, Monique Liston, Sheila Cochran, Reggie Moore, Melissa Marthel. And it's basically an institution to reclaim black culture, black love, black pride, black power. And we'll be talking later on this show about what black power actually means. But when you look at the culture of black people in this city or nationally or internationally, is that we're disorganized. We don't own our institutions. We don't own our local economics. We don't own our politics, our educational institutions, our schools. We are in a powerless position. And we need to start having that conversation and putting and getting together agendas, getting together plans to really reclaim what was lost. Because the travesty is that we were once a great people. In our civilization of Africa, where we taught everyone everything, and they took everything from us, and now we're in a situation where we're trying to reclaim that and get back to that level of greatness. And All Black Everything is just an institution, it's just a culture where we have different programs, and Monique and X will talk to you about the different programs that we have, but basically trying to get a roadmap of a snapshot of where we are and build that bridge to independence, to where we are controlling our local economies, we are controlling the politics, the police, everything that goes into our communities. We have direct control, direct oversight over those things. And so I'll give it to Monique.
Well, ABE, while we're focused on all those things, we have a number of programs, but there's three mainstays that we're trying to institutionalize and really build up. One, my brainchild, my baby, Sankofa Study Circle. Sankofa being in the Khan word, which literally translates as go back and get it, is our opportunity to actually do that reclamation of our history and culture by sitting around, talking, reading, digesting, understanding what is this history that we're missing? How do we apply it? What does it mean? Who can we connect to? How do we better understand our ancestors? We answer all those questions, focus on what we call the ground rules of intellectual work. Understanding that we have to be present, that we have to listen and inscribe, really immerse ourselves in the text. And because we know, because we've been reading, we now have a responsibility to therefore act upon what we know. The other programs are also Feed the People, which is focused on food justice in the community. We've been working really closely with the co-ops that operate here in River West and talking about how can we get co-ops on the north side, the north side of the city. How do we actually have community-based institutions that aren't just in neighborhoods like River West, but also let the black community actually have a chance to build it up for their own interest. And we talk and Feed the People specifically about issues of food justice, food access, not being able to get fresh fruits and vegetables at your grocery store, not being able to eat anywhere other than fast food, not having access to vegetarian or vegan options, just talking about how that actually impacts what happens in the community. A healthy body is a healthy mind. So if we're not feeding ourselves, we're not feeding ourselves. You got to take it like that. Right. And then I think X is going to talk a little bit about the Buy Black program.
And economic development stuff too, if you can.
Okay. Two-piece.
Yeah, man. Two-piece in the business, man.
Well, the Buy Black program, our mainstay right now is hosting workshops where we invite members of the community, business owners alike. We invite them to come down and participate in dialogue and conversation around basically understanding the power we do possess as consumers. The black community, we're not currently manufacturing or producing anything, but we do have buying power. So people need to understand how to utilize that and what that means. The people that you spend your money with are going to be the ones that basically make the decisions on your behalf. So we gotta become more centered around the idea of buying black, spending our money wisely with each other, as opposed with other institutions who take the money and leave, and so we don't really get the benefit. So like I said, we host workshops every other Saturday, twice a month, dealing with issues like accountability, businesses, responsibility that they have to the community. We have a number of guest speakers who attend, and it's been pretty fruitful dialogue has been had from the outset. So I'm pretty excited about it.
That's what's up. And so I think for the listener, when you think about All Black Everything,
Yes.
is that it's just an institution, and if people are out there reading about their culture, spending, supporting black businesses, you're doing what we're trying to do, which is reclaim our culture and really live it. Buy, eat, think, liberate. That's what we believe in. And we also have principles of unity, whether it's the principles of Kwanzaa, whether it's shared work and responsibility, whether it's cooperative economics, purpose, things of that nature. And then we have also the principles of Ma'at, which Monique can talk to you about, which is how we try to govern within ourselves. We might not try to extend it to everybody outside our community, but we're trying to build a community within ourselves. And you can only build that with collective identity and collective purpose. And we're saying that we are people who believe in black people. We are black. We are proud to be black. We are going to claim our African ancestry. And we are moving towards black liberation. And that's how we're going to form our community. And then we're going to govern ourselves accordingly based on these principles and try to live these things, speak to after, all that type of stuff. And Monique will talk to you more about mine.
I think it's really important, too, what you bring up, Ian, is the fact that these 3 programs don't happen in isolation.
Right.
We say buy, eat, think, liberate, because all of those things are what we have to do to exist. And so the programs really work together into understanding that symbiotic relationship. You're going to walk in the Sankofa Study Circle, but of course you're going to talk about what snacks do we get, where do we get them from, what are they going to do for our bodies, where do we buy them from? You go into a Buy Black program, it's like, do we research what we're studying here? Do we understand how this economically plays out? Have we eaten here before? What type of food are they serving? Is it good for us? No matter what we're doing, all 3 programs are still going to resonate. And so, that's the beauty of it. It's like we have a chance and opportunity to focus on individual programs when we can, but there's never a time when any of the other programs aren't relevant.
Right.
And so it's notable. We got to note those principles that we have that interwoven throughout everything that we do. When you take time to actually research ancient Africa, and admittedly, I'm not a scholar in that area by any means, but when you take the time to research, you see that all these different kingdoms and tribes had their own religious institutions. And those religious institutions were not merely just, this is what's come around, so we're going to go around with it. It resembled what their community needed, what their culture was about. So if you have a community that really focused on agriculture near the water, you would see that their gods and goddesses were mostly related to being from the water. If you had a culture that was out in the desert, you will see a relationship between the sun and them being really prevalent in their religious institutions. However, if you look throughout the continent, over 30, 40, 50, 60,000 years, you see that there's some themes that go along with all these religious institutions, and one of them is Ma'at. And the concept of Ma'at is represented by 42 admonitions and 7 virtues, but overall, we consider it the idea of balance, that we do things to make sure that we maintain balance. Marimba Ani, who wrote the book Yurugu, who also is an intellectual inspirer for what ABE has, wrote this book really talking about how European cultural thought has invaded our communities. And by doing that, she said that we have to talk about restoring Ma'at. So you have 3 trajectories of our history. Ma'at, the beginning when we had these great civilizations like Brother Ian was talking about. The Ma'afa, which is the tragedy of the African Holocaust that we're still in the middle of. And then Sankofa is going back and get it, returning ourselves back to the source, going back to Ma'at. So those concepts relating to truth, reciprocity, justice, order, balance are really where we center ourselves into how we govern ourselves amongst each other. So when we have internal accountability, we talk about those in terms of the principles of Kwanzaa, the principles of Ma'at, and the ground rules of intellectual work.
That's deep.
That is very deep.
I mean, when you think about it, is the whole process is saying that we have to rethink everything. And we have to rethink everything from a lens that's a black thing, that's an African thing. African-centered solutions for African-centered people. And so when we talk about how do we move forward as a community, when we talk about community, that's an African-centered perspective. You know, we're saying these things and not even knowing how it connects us back to our true history. And so when we talk about communal economics, when we talk about shared work, when we talk about we need to, you know, invest together, things of that nature, that's all stuff that we just did anyway, that we just need to reconnect and reclaim and actually do it ourselves. If you look at the River West area, and we're very appreciative for having this reparation radio so we can reach the airways. But if you look at River West as a neighborhood, it's a powerful community because they have institutions, you know, whether it's a co-op, you know, whether it's the radio station, which is actually housed in a locally owned video store, you know, whether they have institutions and they made their mark on the city. So where their politics, their economics, their education is all being controlled by the stakeholders, AKA community members of this neighborhood. And when we talk about black liberation, you know, as great as what Marcus Garvey did, we're talking about just something tangible, like let's liberate a block. You know, let's own a block of homes. Let's build a community, you know, co-op. Let's build one business and start employing our own. Like, it's really self-determination, which is an AKA an American concept, rugged individualism. You know, really, it's a self-determination saying we need to do for ourselves. You know, we've been dependent on government, and Mitt Romney said 47% of us, you know, which includes black people, are all just dependent on government. When we talk about social programs, welfare, child care, all that stuff affects us. And as good as those programs are to be a safety net, we can't build wealth that way. We can't clothe our people that way. Like, we don't have the money to feed, clothe, and employ our own people and educate our own people. And that's where we had to start building black power. And so it's actually a perfect segue because when we hear black power, we think of Huey Newton, the Panthers, we think of guns, we think of fists and big afros and afro picks, afro sheen, you know what I'm saying? But in 2012, what does black power really mean for you? And how do we need to contextualize and synthesize it in 2012 moving forward? And the last caveat, in the era of a black president, black entertainment television, you know what I'm saying? Black, you know, entrepreneurs, we got black baseball club owners. Jay-Z just helped, well, you know, he's a minority owner, but he just built a stadium in Brooklyn. Like, in the age of all of these things that are happening symbolically for black people, why do we need black power in 2012? So I'll give those heavy questions to you first, Mo.
I think the first thing is that exactly what you said. It's been symbolic power. It's been, and anybody who's been to Sankofa Study Circle can attest to this. It's been the 2-year-old on the table who you've been put in a powerful position because you're 2. You're standing on top of a table. You can now see the eye with the adults. You're flailing your arms, right, yelling. But any adult comes in the room, they're like, "Man, you standing on the table," and you don't even know it because you're 2. Like, that's all you know is that I'm now up here with people, and that's symbolic power, and that's the difference between what I think is actual black power. So Jay-Z, Oprah Winfrey, all of those things, that's that symbolic power, which is what people always want to refer to. Right. I remember when I was in high school, I'm not gonna name the school, not gonna do that, but when I was in high school, I remember sitting around, we were reading To Kill a Mockingbird. And I remember sitting in the class and this girl saying, "Man, I don't think we have," 2004, mind you, "I don't think we have a problem with race. I mean, look at Oprah Winfrey and look at Monique," because I was president of the student body. That was enough for this person to know that there was no more issues. There was no more issues.
We got Oprah and Bo. We got 2 people.
We got 2 people. We got Oprah, who's a billionaire, and you, student body president. You have done it. And so that symbolic power, I mean, the whole academic paradigm, which is what I speak from a lot, talks about the whole idea of this representative symbolic power that we're always placed into these positions. You have the token black, you have we need to put a black face on it. You have what Obama is in my eyes. We have to put the blame on a black man while we go figure out what we need to do. But I mean, we have to understand and contextualize what symbolic and representative power is instead of actual community power. And when we talk about community power, like, to me, the most important things, and we can talk a little bit about what we study as ABE, but the most important things really regards to institutions. because institutions don't live or die with a person. And I think that's a lot of the things that we have associated Black Power with. And so people associate Black Power with Malcolm X. And so Malcolm X died, that was the end of that. People associate Black Power with the Panthers. And when the Panthers ended, that was the end of that. They associated with Huey Newton. Huey Newton died, that was the end of that. Garvey, they associated with Garvey, was the end of that. But when you talk about actual institutions, those things outlive people. To walk into a school building that's Black owned and Black put together, you can feel the power in it, because you're like, man, this is a mainstay. I don't need to know anyone's name about this. This institution is here to represent what's happening. And I've been in those types of buildings and actually felt that space. And there's a much different feeling between a Black built, owned, and operated institution versus a white institution that's operated by a Black person, and which is what the presidency is in many regards. So when I think Black Power, I really think about the power of institutions and building them, maintaining them, being able to pass them on, do that medu lawu, that comedic term for the staff of old age, train your replacement, being able to put the youth into those things. I think those are the most powerful things that a community or a group of people can do. And so it don't mean nothing to me about Jay-Z or Oprah or any of these people unless they're building something that's institutional in their community, for their community, operated by their community, funded by them.
What about you, X? What does Black Power mean for you in 2012, and do we still need Black Power?
Well, it's absolutely needed, I believe. I think Black Power is more or less our ability to guide and direct our own destiny. Like Black people, we aren't really spoken for. You know what I mean? We don't have anybody lobbying for us, and our problems aren't fixed because of it. You know what I mean? We don't have the ability to change things ourselves in our own communities. You know what I mean? That impact us. So it just means recapturing what we lost, like you said, speaking back to Africa and the things that we accomplished when we were a great people. We made decisions that impacted us. We don't do that anymore. It's more or less, we're in a very fetal position, 2012. It's kind of sad, honestly.
The fetal position.
The fetal position, man. We just balled up getting kicked, and we're not fighting back.
Like an armadillo, huh?
Yeah.
Balled up.
And it's not necessarily, a call to jump up and start getting crazy, but we definitely need to start building towards something. So Black Power to me means just us all coming together for a collective cause or purpose.
Right.
And, figuring out what is going to bring that unity. That's been my biggest thing to tackle, like figuring out what is it going to take for Black people to just stand up and say, okay,
enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
So why don't we just all, get off the radio and spend our time out here rallying for Obama? Like, I don't understand. That's a cause. You know what I'm saying?
It's not our cause.
I hear mad facetiousness in your voice when you talk about that.
I'm just saying,
I think for the listeners, it's important that we use terminology that's commonplace to us all the time, and some folks might not know this because they don't use this certain type of verbiage. But when we talk about institutions, what are we really talking about? When we say institutions, we're talking about family. Family's an institution.
Yeah.
We're talking about space.
Education.
So whether it's where you get your food from, whether it's a grocery store, a church, a bank, institutions, schools, those are institutions of power where things happen. Yeah. And so when you look at your community, whether like I live off 10th and North, there's a McDonald's down the street, there's AutoZone places, there's plenty of liquor stores and gas stations. We don't own any of that stuff. And so when we're going in there buying honey buns, we're going there buying Flamin' Hots, that money's going to someone who doesn't live there, who's not putting money back into that community, and who's not truly a stakeholder, and that's why they throw our money at us a certain way, because, they look at us as just consumers. We don't have any heritage, no culture, no money, no power, so why do you deserve respect? And so that's why we go to BP off 8th and Atkinson. It's a Black-owned gas station. Even sometimes the gas be a little bit high, you know what I'm saying? But we
do it for the people.
But we go there to show solidarity and unity with our own community, saying, we need to support our own. And nothing's wrong with that. And I think if you look at every culture of people, from Hispanic to Jews to anyone, they support their own.
But it's a problem when Black people start to do it.
Yeah.
It's a problem. Like, we can't run away from that.
Why I think it's a problem every time Black people decide to say we're going to start taking care, thinking about, and doing for ourselves?
I think I just started reading what's the name of this book that the Black Milwaukee, the Making of the Industrial Proletariat, and it really speaks a lot about the founding, the racial founding of the state.
Proletariat, just for the listeners, what do you mean by proletariat?
They're talking about the middle class, and I put quotation marks around that because that's probably a mythical institution in and of itself. But we'll call it the making of the industrial middle class. But as I was reading the beginning, you talk about the foundations of the state of Wisconsin. And to me, it's always interesting when you talk about the foundations of any state in the United States, you have to talk about their views on slavery. You have to talk about their views on emancipation. And so they got quotes in here out of, newspapers in Wisconsin that talks about how democratic the state was, but how opposed to abolition it were. They refused to let any black people actually be a part of anything. And that was maintained into their democratic principles. So to me, from the offset, allows a space for us to question what it means to be a part of the Democratic Party, even though black people have this blind allegiance to it. Let's talk about
democratic process, period.
Why?
Electorally, legislatively.
If it's always been a democratic process that we've been excluded from.
Right.
So how is it democratic? Right. So it's even quotes in here that talks about the idea is that we should be taking care of the black people. We should be feeding them and giving them jobs. And in return, they need to take care of the people who feed them and give them jobs. Like that was the views in the state of Wisconsin on black people. And so if you don't talk about those...
Man, whoa.
Right.
Shout
out to Tony Marley. I want to do a quick shout out to all ABE members, from Vicky Porter, Tony Marley, Reggie Moore,
Melissa, Cammy,
Killer Cam,
Knox, Boo,
DB, Do Better, David Bowen. There's plenty more. I'm just blanking right now. Jamal, Rashida, you know what I'm saying? Simeon. Shout out to all ABE members holding it down wherever you are at right now, listening in, taking care of your families, whatever you are. Much love to ABE, but not to just go back to you, Mo. What you talking about? Basically, if you feed and clothe us, we need to worship you, serve you.
Basically, that was the democratic views of the state of Wisconsin.
Look, man, you need to be thankful for what you get.
Be thankful. I mean, what was the representative's name who said we should be thankful for slavery because we were able to be members of this great institution, this great civilization, the greatest civilization in the world. Is what he said. The United States.
I mean, because we really weren't doing anything in Africa when you think about it. We was chasing bunnies and things of that nature.
We're only building pyramids, coming up with the calendar, doing surgical methods that people have yet to figure out. People still don't know how they built the pyramids. The year is 2012. People have the ability to dedicate themselves to nothing else other than trying to figure out one single solitary question. And people still don't know how they built the pyramids. So, meanwhile, while we've been so blessed to come to the greatest civilization on earth, we have to be able to question. When we talk about institutions, like you were saying, we have to question what the institution is that put us in this position, and that's whiteness as an institution. It's been institutionalized as into our founding of this country, the founding of the state, and the founding of the city of Milwaukee. The original debate about the city was whether black men were going to be allowed to vote. They had this question from the onset of whether we're going to have that. They voted for it. There was a margin wide enough that said that black men should be allowed to vote, and they vetoed it because they said there wasn't enough votes cast of the total group. So you had the people in charge vetoed by the people in charge to not even allow that to happen. So when we bringing up this race question isn't rehashing old stuff. This is saying this is how you were founded. This is embedded in how you guys live and institutionalize ourselves. So if it's part of the city charter, that means it's about our public education system, it's about our taxation system, it's about how we eat, how we trade, how we barter, commerce, all of that. So if we don't talk about it from that root cause, we're not talking about it.
And I think that's a conversation that needs to be had, and it's not always, people always want to have it. I mean, Facebook, that's where everybody goes now. That's the watering hole, Facebook.com. But you'd be surprised how many conversations, I have online, offline, side chats about racism. People not thinking it's a problem, and our own president, who was a black man, can't even get angry or mad because, and he's in the highest office of the land. This man has to think about, if I raise my voice, you might think I'm too militant and you won't vote for me.
You'll see me questioning white power and then you won't vote for me.
Right,
Call it what it is.
I might evoke images of Stokely Carmichael or something like that, and that's ridiculous. But when you see Mitt Romney do it and act like an imbecile, an idiot, he's praised and he's aggressive and he's passionate. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that even from a simplistic view, you see how racism, whiteness as a privilege, still permeates within our society. I think for me personally, when I think about Black Power, I just think about Black independence. Man, I think about just having the ability to define who I am as a man, as a human being, how I'm going to live, how I'm going to speak, how I'm going to eat. Like knowing that I could wake up and be and have freedom, have equality,
Sovereignty,
have justice, have sovereignty, be my own person. I don't have to change up my voice. I don't gotta, not have a beard, not to offend no one. I could be exactly who God has ordained me to be. That's what I think about Black Power, and I think about what we're trying to do is really just saying that there is greatness in us, and we need to love ourselves first and see humanity and love of Black people in our communities, and maybe we could start treating each other differently, and saying that I should spend with you, because some people be like, I went to one Black place, the service was bad, I no longer go there, but we'll go to any other place owned and controlled by any other type of people.
And get treated the same way.
And get treated the same way, but we go there, you know what I'm saying? Like, we still gonna go to La Perlas, La Fuentes, I go there too, but at the same time, we have to find ways that we can economically support our own. And that's really what we're talking about with Black Power. And I think when you look at, even if I take the current presidential election, there is no Black agenda. There was an article that came out that's saying that the NAACP and other organizations were trying to put together a Black debate forum. And both candidates, the president and Mitt Romney, both declined. And so we're looking at political discourse where we're not even mentioned in the discourse. We're not even included in the plans, the solutions, the problems. Like, we're not talking about poverty. We're not talking about mass incarceration or the criminalization of Black boys and Black girls. Like, we're not even being talked about, even though we are the cultural people in this country who are suffering the most. And I think that when you talk about power, you can't even tell me that we are powerful people when we're not even included in the political discourse, but yet we're pledging all of our loyalty, all of our time, all of our conversation, resources, and energy into one man, one office, one man for another 4 years. Well, he'll be a lame duck because he's not coming back and really won't have power to get things through. Instead of organizing ourselves, it's like, when do we see the beauty of Blackness within our own selves and our neighbors and our families and saying, let's start organizing our community and not just seeing it in symbolic victories. Like, that's the only time where we're proud to be Black, when somebody famous or rich is doing well and we get to identify and be close to the power.
Right.
Let's actually be powerful ourselves. And no disrespect to the president or anyone who's voting, but it's the truth. If you get mad at it, get mad at it. I really don't care. But it's a conversation that needs to be had. But
I think it's important too to recognize that we're not talking about a brand new concept. We're not out here trying to say like no one's ever thought of this before. Right. Like, we're saying like Black power is something that needs to be restored, and not just the idea of, oh, we had this back in ancient Kemet. Let's 6,000 years later try to reclaim it. Like, people have been doing it. People are doing it at this moment.
Right.
But if we don't take the time to recognize it in all its manifestations, then we're not going to do it. I mean, just like your favorite quote from Adam Clayton Powell. Power. What's Black power?
Black power is Black dignity.
And so being
as long as you're proud to be white, we're proud to be Black.
And it's nothing wrong with that. There's no inherent, I'm proud to be this, so therefore I hate.
Right.
It's nothing in that. It's even addresses that kind of attitude, that kind of sentiment. The idea that I can be powerful in and of myself is supported in any other type of movement but this one. The women's movement is predicated upon the same principles. That a woman is powerful. We're fighting against male domination and patriarchy.
Or LGBT rights. Or
it's
any,
the
or
same
any culture
thing.
of people.
Oppression is oppression.
It's oppression.
Oppression is oppression.
Right.
So at the end of the day, oppression is fighting what the other side has, which
Union
is
power. Union solidarity, union power. A group of people identifying with themselves and saying that we are powerful. We might be workers. We might not own the means of production, but we are valuable. We are powerful. And we're going to exert our power. It's the same concept, and I don't understand why it would make anyone nervous unless you think that we about to go get some guns,
Yes.
and march down the street and demand reparations. You know what I'm saying? That might be the guilt factor that white people and other people have for the conditions that that Black people are living in, that have lived in, and are living in currently. And so if we're gonna talk about it, let's talk about it. But I think that, and this goes back to the so-called democracy of America. If you truly love America, that means you truly want everybody to be successful. You want everyone to truly be prosperous and to be free. And you got to start breaking down these constructs. whether it's gender, whether it's race, whether it's class, so you can actually start moving on this trajectory where democracy is something that's actualized and not just talked about in political campaigns. 'Cause that's what we have. We talk about democracy in this ideology. Like if you go to these conventions, the Democratic Convention, oh my God, people were just like American nationalism, loving the country, loving the stars and stripes. You know, but what are we doing in our day-to-day lives to break down those constructs so that you can actually have a country you should be proud of? I don't even know if you should be proud of it right now, you know, considering how it's treating its own citizens. You know what I'm saying? So why are you even proud when our kids are being murdered in the street and you can't find a job, and the people who cause the economic, financial, and housing crises are free? You're losing your homes. They're getting bailouts on your tax dime, but who's bailing you out? Like, why are you proud of this?
And you can go to jail for just trying to send your kid to a good school, and they can do tax evasion for 30 years on a corporation that'll be enough money that generations of their kids can last for, and spend 30 days in jail.
Right.
Like that's the dynamic that we're working with. And it seems like it's easy to make the argument, but look at that third world, and I put quotations up because that doesn't even mean anything. You have to create a first world in order to have a third world. But look at that third world country. Look at over there and see how tyrannical and oppressive their government is. You know why? Because they want everybody to read. Like people want to point at Cuba and look at how ridiculous it is. They have a 98% literacy rate in Cuba.
Yeah, right.
Do you know what the literacy rate is in the United States?
Low 30.
It's around 50%. It's around 50%. That means 1 out of 2 people are out here reading. You have a city, we don't even take it to the whole country. You have a city where not even 50% of our high school students are graduating. Like that to me, that I couldn't believe it, because the assumption is you graduate from high school, like that's what you
assumption.
do. The assumption
you get
is
your good enough diploma,
you go.
You know.
But to realize that that's not even happening, that people are barely making it out of that paradigm. Yet we're gonna go over here and say, look at how terrible y'all are treating y'all people, but no one's questioning what's happening in their own backyard.
And I think even politically, it goes back to the conversation of, federal politics is sexy and, it's mainstream as it gets, but what's happening locally? And that actually is a perfect segue to what's happening locally. One of the biggest local community concerns is the tragic death and murder of Derek Williams, a young African-American man who was basically killed in police custody, gasping for air, begging for help, and ignored by folks who we pay taxes to protect and serve. And so there's a lot of conversation, a lot of people on the grassroots doing marches, doing rallies, to petitions to keep up the public pressure on the mayor and police chief and things of that nature, and I applaud those type of efforts. They definitely have their place. And there's talks, right now, the city council and the district attorney are cooperating with special prosecutors from the FBI, and people are being encouraged to send stories to the FBI.
It's hilarious.
To talk about what's going on. So maybe we can have some sort of policing the police to the other police.
It's hilarious.
The concept, when you think about Black liberation, it's hilarious because the FBI, had a hand in killing our leaders, destroying.
Not a hand, they were the hand.
Right. And killing our leaders and dismantling the Black Panther Party, helping to dismantle all Black liberation movements in this country. And so
even
it's kind
peaceful
of
ones.
Right. So it's kind of weird that we have to petition to them for any sort of justice, but that's just the paradox that we live in as Black people in this country, is that we often have to appeal to white supremacy in different forms for some sort of modicum of justice. But I think, whether you recall the mayor, you take down the police chief, you abolish the fire and police commission, whatever you do, what is the community response to policing their own communities, defending their own communities against any sort of violence, not just police brutality, but any sort of violence in our communities?
External or internal?
Internal or external. How do we move forward in having that conversation as not only economically being liberated, not only politically being liberated, but militarily? How do we start having that conversation? Because in Wisconsin, we have concealed carry, we have open carry laws. It's very, as long as you don't have a checkered past, it's very easy to own a firearm.
Yes.
In this state. Do we need armed self-defense like the Black Panthers started in the 60s? X, what you think, man?
I'm an advocate for it. I don't believe we need to run around flashing guns anymore. But self-defense is crucial. you know, and it's not necessarily just protecting yourself from the police because they're not the only ones oppressing us. We tend to oppress each other a lot these days. So you know what I mean. When you're talking about self-defense, you're talking about defending yourself from whatever threatens your safety.
Right.
So I'm an advocate for it. Like I said, it's your Second Amendment right to own a gun. I feel like you know, to protect your family, to protect your household, you should definitely own a gun. Yeah.
What about you, Mo?
Man, this has been something I've been thinking about hard body since, what was it, June 1st or July 1st? July 1st when the law went into effect.
Oh, the concealed carry?
Yeah.
That last year. Oh, wait. Yeah, that was last year.
Last year, June 1st.
Yeah. No, it didn't come into effect until like November of last year.
Whatever the date was,
Yeah. I
I remember having the conversation with friends, whether do I buy a firearm or do I buy a bulletproof vest? Which one do I do? What is safety? Does it mean? What does safety actually mean? And I haven't personally been convinced to say that I need to go do it for myself. I mean, I don't have any kids. I live alone, but for whatever reasons, I haven't been convinced that that's what I need to do. But I'm not saying that no one should feel that way or shouldn't be committed to it. When it comes to talking about systems of oppression and black liberation and what power actually means, and like you're saying, brother, Ian, the idea of military power, my stance has always been my shot has no power if there's no army behind shooting when I get shot. And it's that same thing when we talk about voting. Like, my vote doesn't have power unless my whole representative community is going to be along on that same thing. My dollar only has enough power if everybody's going to be back behind me.
So you talk about more like blocks, like voting blocks, economic blocks.
All together, it's
like
all about.
All together.
It's the whole idea of power. And so when it comes to this particular situation, even on an ideological basis, I'm still not convinced that this is the best move for us, because if we're going to focus on military power, if the establishment wanted to get rid of every black person militarily, they could. There's no way we can fight that. So that's why I'm like, I don't know if we're just entering another losing battle that way. Even if we say, we could stand in the middle of Center Street, every black person in the city with guns, and all you need is the rest of the city to say no. And that's the end of that. So I just don't know how much power that actually carries for actually building something or maintaining something. I don't know how far it actually goes, instead of just recreating a system where, okay, now we have another reason to work against them.
I think, just for the listener's sake, in the spirit of being responsible, we're not talking about advocating people to go out looting and shooting people up and
using
doing
this as an
right
excuse.
Right.
To get out
We're
here.
saying that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And if it's a legal right to own a firearm, to be trained responsibly of operating a firearm in communities with high crime and police brutality, should we be forming our own gun clubs, militias? Like you had the African Blood Brothers back in the 1920s. I mean, you had a history of folks, saying we're going to defend. We're defending our communities. When you look at what happened in Tulsa, people were shooting back. It just wasn't like, they eventually got bombed, due to the country's, manpower. But there were people in the community defending we're going to defend our community. And so I think it's really that perspective of, we know what the institution's going to do. We know that, this is a cover-up. So they're going to do all they can to mitigate the damage, pay out a lawsuit, give us some type of change so that we'll be appeased. But what do we do as black people moving forward in our own institutions, in our own accord, maintaining safety or maintaining some level of safety in our communities? And I think that's a conversation that needs to be had.
But I guess the question comes too, we should talk about, maybe I'm asking from some clarity, but what is safety? Like, what does it mean to be safe? What is it?
I mean, I think it's, letting your kids go out and play and not have to fear something, if a stray bullet gonna come and hit them. It's can I come home at night and not have to look behind me before I go into the garage? Like last week, there was a shootout in the back of my alley. That's not safe. Like, can I live in a place where there's not shootouts? You know what I'm saying? Like, can I live in a place where if I'm away from my family, I have peace of mind? Coming or going, they're safe, or bullets won't fly inside the house. Like, that's how I view safety. I don't know about you, X.
Yeah. Personal harm. defending yourself against personal harm, whatever that means to you. Um, I was gonna ask because like they're talking about like recalling Flynn or whatever.
Well, he's appointed, so the mayor could, and the common council could remove him.
Remove him.
Or you could recall the mayor if he's not responding. Or these are your options.
What do you think they're gonna replace him with?
Right.
You know what I mean? What do we?
Right.
If we're gonna talk about removing police, we better be able to protect ourselves.
Right.
Or, you know what I mean? Prove we're competent enough to handle the responsibility for our safety. And I don't think we're at that point collectively.
Right.
So it falls on the individual to make sure that he's able to take care of his own.
I mean, I think that's a good
Safety
question. Is that
issue.
when you talk about calling for someone's removal, who do they get replaced with? Politically, in my mind, you would replace them with a black person.
That's
To
perfect.
appease the concerns of the community, put a black face up there, disguised as white power, you know, and that'll appease us because he's there. But are we looking at systemic changes within the Fire and Police Commission? Because the thing I see is that the mayor and the common council, they use the Fire and Police Commission as a fall-off guy. Like,
Yeah.
oh, we don't really do that. That's them. That's that governing body. Don't come at us with that. And so is it removing that layer of bureaucracy so you can directly hold the mayor and hold your aldermen accountable for what's happening in your communities, which makes sense to me if the Fire and Police Commission is not serving its due duty at protecting the interests of the citizens.
I think it's important too, and I think X-Mick brings up an excellent point about the idea of like, what do you replace them with? I think the whole thing and the whole way that the community is responding, noble indeed, and respect every part of it, but we have to admit that it's a reaction. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we had this conversation, this exact same show 3 months ago, we would be talking about just a different child. So like, let's not call it anything different than what it is. This is a reaction to the current situation. Now, when we talk about what the ability is for us to police ourselves, you have to talk. That's back to institution building.
Right.
Your power lies in that, and it's fine to have this noble fight against the establishment. Like, it makes sense. You know, you need justice. You need to revenge for those that have been hurt. That makes total sense. And in fact, I wouldn't argue for anything against that. However, there's nothing stopping the community from building its own community police now. A community can unite and build that. What you need to do is systematically create it. Say, this is what we're going to do. This is our requirements. This is what we want. And you try it out. And there's going to be mistakes, but this is the time to do it. So when you're advocating for it, you can be like, well, we already have it. You can't ask for it permission to do something in your own community. That's what I don't understand. You know what's happening in your community. You know people are coming at your community. They're coming for your children, coming for your livelihood, coming for your humanity for no other reason than what you look like and what you represent to them, which is the bottom of the people, the bottom of humanity. And so if you already know that, you can organize yourselves to protect yourself for the same thing. It's not just community police, but it's community justice all around.
Right.
So when it does go down, you know where people are at.
Right.
You go get them and you hold them. Like, do that, and you can do that without ever considering what's already the established status quo.
Right. And I think that goes into the conversation we were having a couple of nights ago about build and destroy. Like, we're destroying our dependency on the system. We're destroying its credibility or power within our community by advocating against it, reforming for changes. But at the same time, we're building our own capacity to police our own communities and police our own selves. And I think that's a strategy that we have to start implementing in our work, is that even when we address the system that governs us, that has legal governance over, you know, whatever jurisdiction you're talking about, whether it's city, state, county, you know, nationally, you know, what are we building our own self-sufficiency to do? And, you know, because, you know, John Henry Clark always says every leader has to ask themselves a couple of questions. How will my people be housed? How will they be clothed? How will they be fed? How will they be employed? And how will they be defended? And that's actually a righteous cause to say that we are going to institute some sort of mechanism to defend ourselves from any attacks and to see some sort of justice, you know, when things happen to ourselves or our children in the community, you know. And sometimes I get frustrated by not seeing that two-pronged strategy work, where it's more emphasis placed on the activism part but not on the building part. Yeah. And so because honestly, and not to diminish, you know, what happens, but 3 months ago we talked about Darius Simmons. 3 months prior to that we talking about Trayvon Martin. A year ago, we talking about Troy Davis. Like,
a year ago, we're talking about State Fair. Like,
right, State Fair. So, like, it's a continuous problem that we have internally and externally in our community. Is going to keep getting addressed. It's going to keep being organized and around it like it should be. You know, but at the same time, a year from now, if we said today is October 14th, a year from now, we're still going to have these type of situations, right? But where are we going to be, institutionally wise, October 14th, 2013? Are we going to have some sort of infrastructure in place to respond to these concerns? You know, are we going to have an infrastructure in place to defend ourselves from these type of issues? And I think that's kind of where ABE is trying to go as far as how do we figure out how to build. And you need resources to build. You know what I'm saying? You need money to build. But how do we start building that our own capacity to do for ourselves?
And I think that's important what you're saying about the idea of we need resources to do things, because that's what stops people most often. I don't have the money, so I don't. You know, if I had the money, I definitely would. And I think that's what separates ABE from a lot of what's going on, is that we're not letting that stop us.
Right.
Like, we might not have the money, but let's talk about this conversation. Like, we have to have a revolution, but we can't have a revolution unless there's a revolutionary consciousness first. And so if we're not building that, like, it doesn't make any sense for me to give you a firearm when you don't understand why we have it. If you don't understand what discipline we go by in terms of what we do for our communities, I can't just give it. So we need to have that consciousness raising to understand why we get our resources. Like Dr. John Henry Clark and Bob Amos Wilson, they all refer to that your economics is your culture. how you use your money is totally dependent on how your culture acts. And so if you have a culture that doesn't talk about what is economically in their best interest, and we understand that economics is an extension of politics, is an extension of military, all of that's all economics. If we don't have a culture that undergirds that, we're putting ourselves back in harm's way. So how do we go out and say, you know, we can advocate for this, we can fight for this, but we've never established this shared cultural concept, self-concept, really, the cultural self-concept that allows us to say, no, this is a yes, this is a no, that own rubric by which we're going to live by.
And just so I'm going to do some improvisation. I was going to go to a different segment, but we have to be closing up soon, but I want to pose to the group, to X first, when we talk about revolution. What does revolution mean? Like, in context, revolution means to most people armed struggle. Like, I'm taking up arms to overthrow an unjust system and replace it with a better system. In this current context of 2012, where we know we're not even there yet, right? And maybe we'll never be there, I don't know. But what does revolution mean to you in this current context of 2012?
Well, like you said, we're not at the point where we can physically pose a revolution. So we gotta more internalize it and think more revolutionary when trying to come up with strategies to combat our everyday ills. So to me, being revolutionary could be a clothing drive, feeding your people, you know what I mean, educating them, spending time with your elders, learning. That's revolutionary. In today's context, anything that goes against the norm of what's oppressing us, you know what I mean, not contributing to your own oppression. To me, that's revolutionary.
What about you, Mo?
I have to completely agree with that. That last statement sums it up perfectly. Like, not contributing to your own oppression, because it's easy to contribute to your own. You know, I'm running down the street, I'm late for school, let me stop at McDonald's. Okay, well, let's see how much that dollar that you're spending actually has an impact on making your life better. And so when I think of revolution, I think on the most basic level, the first thing that they had to make sure that they did to the black community was rip the family apart. That was the root of understanding how we could take care of these people and make sure that they lived under our structures. And so when you talk about the most revolutionary act, is being able to love yourself and to really say, this is my family. You know, and that's not going by any conventional terms. I'm not saying mom, dad, and baby. I'm saying whoever it is, by saying that this is what we can do. The most revolutionary thing we can do say that we love each other and we're going to do anything for that love. We'll defend it. We'll go out and promote it. We'll say that it's happening. We'll take pictures, post it on Facebook. We'll flood the world with the idea that I love myself and my people. And I think that's at the very root of it, because once you have that, I mean, anybody can attest to, even if you claim you haven't been in love, you've heard a love song and felt some sort of way about somebody. And if you feel to know what that is, like, man, you know, I'll die for this. You know what I'm saying? understand that little that you get inside your tummy when you're like, I know this is love. To understand and apply that to your people, to your community, is really the root of doing something revolutionary, because that's not what your community is supposed to be able to do.
And I would have to just concur with what's being said. I think when you look at historically, you know, when you look at armed revolution, you know, or machetes, shout out to Haiti, you know what I'm saying?
Shout out to Haitian Sensation.
Shout out to the Haitian Sensation Male and the Haitian Revolution. But in the current context, it's really just doing the opposite of what we have been doing. And so if you look at the context of the Black Panther Party, they saw their service programs as reformists, but I saw them as revolutionary. You're feeding hungry kids every morning and teaching them things. You're giving them meals that they wouldn't get any other time, and to the point that America was so shamed that they couldn't do the same thing that they actually started doing.
Had to do the same.
Whether it was sickle cell, whether it was the breakfast program, that was revolutionary.
Community nursing program.
Clinics,
The community nursing clinics. I mean, they had so many programs, even with free shuttles for elders to go get their groceries. Like, that's revolutionary. So I think when you look at it, if we don't have any institutions, it's safe to say that it's revolutionary to build institutions.
Yes.
If we don't have any unity, it's revolutionary to build Black unity. If we don't have any love for community, or community that even is tangible, it's revolutionary to build communities. It's revolutionary to build love. It's revolutionary to build the bonds within Black men and within Black women, and cross-genderly with Black men and Black women, like, to really rethink how we've been living, how we're accustomed to living and learning and worshiping, spending. It's revolutionary to say we're going to buy land on First and Wright or whatever, 22nd and Keith, and we're going to liberate this block. We're going to make sure that the houses are in tip-top shape. We're going to make sure that the kids on this block are eating, and we're going to make sure that we protect this block from anything that happens. That's revolutionary, and I think that's the type of community building that needs to happen within Milwaukee, in the central
Has
city,
to happen.
that you have to start reclaiming your block. When we say take back the hood, let's really take it back.
Literally,
you know,
in all
economically,
forms.
educationally, like every sense of the word. Let's start building power, capacity, and institutions to really take it back and to show people, you know, what's really going on, and that Black people are awakened. Black people are no longer scared. Uncle Toms are no longer living. You know, this is real blackness. You know what I'm saying? Like, time is gone. You know what I'm saying?
Tom don't live here no more.
Time don't live here no more. You know, real Black people are waking up and saying that, you know, it's powerful to be Black. We ain't afraid to be Black. And let's start having those conversations, pulling our money together. You know, because there's a concept in this community that we can't, that anything that we have to do, we have to go to white people to get money for it, or to get permission to do it. And it's saying, no, we just gonna do it ourselves. You know, as easy as we organize to do anything else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To go get that dime sack. Like, we need to organize ourselves to go get us some piece of land and build a home for these orphans out here, for these homeless kids out here. Like, there's so many things that we can do. It's revolutionary to start building and destroying. And, you know, and as we wrapping up, anything that you guys want to say?
Just a shout out to all the ABE programs. If you want to find out about any upcoming events, the best and quickest way to find out is to go on Facebook, facebook.com/the THEABE movement, MOVEMENT. You can find out when the next Sankofa Study Circle. We have a Feed the People meeting tomorrow night at Urban Underground, 4850 West Fond du Lac Avenue. Come in and find out information. Actually, it's the Buy Black program meets Feed the People. So you can be able to meet both of the leaders of both programs, find out information on how you can contribute, help, volunteer, all those wonderful things. But definitely keep connected with us. Find out what's happening. If you're interested in trying to do something, organize your block, like, we're more than happy to be supportive of that. Just it's all Black everything. So there's nothing that doesn't fall outside that purview. All Black everything. It's all of it.
Right. Hey. What about you, X? Any last minute sentiments?
Shout out to Black people, man. In general, shout out to everyone who identifies with anything we said tonight.
Right.
You know, and that's not a color thing. That's just a consciousness thing, man.
Right.
Being aware of the situation we're in.
Right. And it's a process.
It is.
You know what I'm saying? It's a
not
process.
overnight.
Right. It's not overnight, and it's hard to digest. It's hard to look and say, man, I've been taught a lot of BS, and I need to calibrate myself and think differently and act differently. And so shout out to everybody who's fighting against oppression every day as we try to survive in this world. Shout out to folks who are are who have said that they are no longer going to stand by silently
Right.
and watch the injustices of black people go, and we're gonna do something about it. So shout out to all of y'all for what y'all doing, for listening. We're gonna be here every Sunday from 8 to 9 talking about black power, black liberation. You know what I'm saying? Reparations Radio, Revolutionary and Ratchet. You know what I'm saying?
Reparations Radio.
And before we go, I just want to say that it's a very important piece of news, man. Gucci Man next year, 2013, man. Gucci Man is going to put out 10 albums. He's going to flood the community, the airways, with 10 albums. And so I want to end this segment with 10 things that Gucci Man could do to liberate black people, to spend his time more wisely than put out 10, Gucci type albums.
Count them down.
Gucci Man could learn to read and write.
One.
Gucci Man.
He could feed.
He could wear FUBU.
He could wear
us by us. Black economics.
Some legitimate. Listen, legitimate.
Number 3.
He could feed a block for a year.
He could feed a block for a year. Number 4.
He could get a piece of cake tattooed on the other side of his face.
He can drop Waka Flocka from his label. Or he could do a collabo album with 2 Chainz.
Yes.
Wow.
Ooh.
That would liberate us.
Wow.
That would be
2
interesting.
Chainz.
Yes.
We gotta go. 5 more. 5 more things.
He could,
Man
instead
do.
of making albums, he could put his name on coasters, because that's the only thing people are going to use him for anyway.
4 more.
He could
X, what you got?
ask Young Jeezy for forgiveness, man.
Ooh.
Who actually does make alright music
He does, man.
at times.
He could buy up some chicken places
Yeah,
in Milwaukee.
a
'cause we
wing
love
stop,
to eat
man.
chicken.
Bring a wing
Bring a
stop to
wing
Milwaukee.
stop, man.
Why you buying
Buy
chains?
a fast and friendly right down the street, man.
Right now.
Buy Jake's.
Offer
Right
me
now.
deals.
Right, buy
Right
Jake's
now.
right now.
Yeah.
Number 9. What we got? What can Gucci Man do? He can find salvation. Go find Jesus, man. Gucci Man need to go to church.
Man.
To get saved, man. One
Talk
more.
about it. One more.
Come on.
Gucci Man could.
Vote.
Wow. That's.
Gucci Man can vote.
Gucci
can
Man
vote.
would probably vote
Can he
Romney.
vote?
Can he vote?
No, he can't vote.
Why not?
That man
I don't
got-
know, man. He got like
But
20
it depends on
felony
where you
gun
are.
charges.
Because, like, even
That
in the
is
state
true.
of Wisconsin, you can vote as long as you're not on parole, right?
Right.
You can vote. It's not. No, you can vote if you got charges, as long as they're not pending or you're not on parole. You can
Right,
vote.
right. So shout out to all the folks who are fighting for voting rights, ex-felons, everybody. Go vote if you choose to. That is your right. But we need to get up out of here. ABE Radio next Sunday will be on 8 p.m. Be there, be square. It's your
Don't-
boy, right?
Is that our closeout?
Right.
Reparations Radio.
Reparations
Be there, be
Radio. This is E
square.
Biddle.
Monique.
Xavier.
All black everything.
Peace.
Holla.